Reading from the Gospel of Luke begins with but. But on the first day of the week at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly two men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their heads to the ground. But the two men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He's not here, but he has risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day raised again." Well, then they remembered his words. And returning from the tomb, they told all of this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb, stooping and looking in, and he saw the linen clothes by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. Thus ends the reading of the word. Luke finishes chapter 23, just before these lines, with a description of Joseph of Arimathea having obtained permission from Pontius Pilate, retrieving the body of Jesus, wrapping it in linen cloth, and placing it in a rock-hewn tomb where no one else had ever lain before. According to Luke, there was no time to properly prepare the body, and so the women who had come with Jesus all the way from Galilee and who had followed Joseph to the tomb were shown the tomb and were shown how the body was placed in it. That's how chapter 23 finishes. It was then that the women returned to the place where they were staying in Jerusalem on that Friday afternoon, and they prepared spices and ointments to properly anoint the body after the Sabbath. That's Luke's story. They rested then on the Sabbath day according to the commandment. And then Luke says, but it was on the first day of the week at early dawn, they, the women, came to the tomb taking the spices that they had prepared. Most of you have heard me list the names of the women disciples. And Luke lists 3 of them in his chapter 8, in chapter 8 of his gospel, and he lists 3 of them here in this chapter as well. When Luke refers to the women, he is referring to the group of women that is the counterpart to what is known commonly as the 12, now the 11, men who followed Jesus, the women and the 12. We have heard it said that the women were not counted, they were not numbered when in the company of men. The only heads that were ever counted in a group were the heads of men. So when Jesus fed the 5,000, when there were women and children present, it was 5,000 plus the women and children, perhaps making it as many as 15,000. Thus, the 12 and the women. But it is ever so important that we remember and are aware that these women, like the men, came with Jesus from Galilee. Not only that, the women provided for the rest of them out of their own resources. It is the women who come to the tomb at early dawn on that first day of the week with the intention of preparing and anointing the body of Jesus with those spices and ointments that they had prepared. When they arrived, although there is no mention of anyone placing a stone in front of the entrance to the tomb, the stone which they were expecting has been rolled away. The women didn't hesitate. They didn't hesitate for a second outside that tomb. They went right in. to investigate what had happened. And Luke says, while they were very perplexed about what they found, they didn't panic. They weren't terrified. No, not in that moment. Until two men appeared suddenly in dazzling clothes and stood right beside the women. That's reminiscent of the vision that was seen on the Mount of Transfiguration, where Jesus was in the company of two men dressed in dazzling raiment. It was only then that the women were terrified. And they turned, Luke says they turned their faces to the ground. Well, of course they did that. My heavens! If they looked up at such dazzling radiance, which most certainly must have been from God, they would die. Anybody who looked at God died. Well, maybe except Moses. And just Moses went, well, he was up on the mountain with God. And he got really sunburned. And that just lasted forever. But in their cowed positions, the women heard these two men say, "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" I'm thinking of a smart remark. Well, duh! Weren't we just here the other day and saw him put here? He is not here, but he has risen. Then the two men, as if they had been witnesses to Jesus' teachings, and Jesus talks with the 12 and the women, go right on saying, "Don't you remember how he told you while he was in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified and on the third day rise again?" Well, today is the third day. Well, actually, it's the first day of the week. But if you say that Friday, even though technically it was only part of the day, was day 1, and Saturday was day 2, then today, even though it's technically